Hello, my fellow witches, sorcerers, and other magical practitioners. My name is Aiden, and welcome back to Sky Snake Sorcery. In this episode, we're going to be talking about altar protocols, which is a pretty broad topic. I have a lot to talk about with this one, and I'm hoping that it'll be a really good overall general episode to kind of jump off of and maybe get into more specifics. I know that one topic I do want to talk about right out the gate after this episode goes up is talking more in depth about statues. So, be sure to stay tuned for that. Altars are kind of found in many different shapes and sizes and have all kinds of different uses. When I say altar in this episode, I am referring to kind of a catch-all sense of altars, which can be shrines, workspaces, devotional areas, and really anything where you set up a space to do a thing consistently. It's very general here, specifically so that I can talk about all kinds of different things at once without necessarily limiting what we're talking about to any one specific tradition or idea. But before we go any further, I do want to do a quick little bit of housekeeping. Hi, my name is Aiden. I am Aiden the Vivitch on Instagram if you want to reach out to me there to ask any sort of questions or to, check out all the things I post there. I post anything from just little pictures and stuff from my life to guides on doing various forms of spell work, rituals, and the like, as well as going a little bit more in depth on some more specific topics. I also recommend checking out my website, aidenthewitch.com. Again, that is Aiden the Vivitch, 2 V's for witch. Over there, you can see all of my various blog posts. You can also check out my magical services there. I offer spell work as well as various types of readings. For spell work, I'm able to do pretty much anything that you are looking for. I go through a consultation first. I look at if I can actually take on this work or not. And then I give you all the details about how we're going to go forward with it. So be sure to check all of that out at aidenthewitch.com, AIDENTHVVITCH.com. And let's get back into this episode. So, sort of the question that this episode orients itself around is how do we set up, maintain, respect, and grow our altars? And that's kind of the question, isn't it? How do we actually make an altar? How do we actually engage with it? What even do we do with this thing now that we've made it? Because altars are kind of this seemingly obligatory thing in a lot of practices. Altars are something that's like, oh, you need to set up an altar first, you need to make an altar. And it's never really fully explained, unless you're obviously in a specific tradition being taught, what that actually entails, what it's for, why you need one. And I will also, despite the fact that this is about altar protocols, I will say altars are not 100% absolutely necessary in every single situation. Sometimes you don't need an altar, sometimes you just need a space out in the forest, sometimes you just do a spell wherever. For the longest time, I actually just had a board, like a wooden plank, that I did all my spells on top of that I would then put away. I would consider that, in the context of how we're defining altar in this episode, an altar. However, I will mostly be talking about those more specific, dedicated, continual spaces that are fed and nurtured over time. So what actually does determine an altar space? Truly, anything can be an altar, anywhere can become an altar, and it does not have to be big. This is especially good for people who cannot openly practice in their home, whether it's because of their parents, because of a landlord, because of any sort of restriction that it might have, roommates, whatever it may be. You can have a much smaller space that can become your dedicated altar. In all honesty, a tea light candle lit by the front door with a splash of water, that's an altar. That becomes a place where spirits can come forward, can aggregate, where you can now do work. You can leave little bundles by the front door, little things. You can do a quick spell by the front door, oral charm over it, light your candle, douse it after your spell is done, put it away, come back, splash your water. Give it a little bit of gin, a little bit of whiskey, get stuff working. If you can't do incense, you could dab oils on it. That can become an altar. Same with really any door, with any wall, with any space. You can carve out a little spot in your wall. You can put into it a prayer card. You can roll it up and stick it in there. take it out, work with the prayer card, put it back in. That prayer card can be the altar itself. Your wallet is an altar. It can be a lot. Anything can be an altar if you truly want to work it. And I probably will do a whole episode about tiny shrines and travel altars separately to get more in depth with that. But for a more traditional altar, you can just set up a table with a glass of water, a candle, and an image of the spirit that you're dedicating it to, or to whatever you're working this for. Like if it's just a general altar that doesn't have a necessary dedication, I do keep a general altar around that is then wiped off after spell work, so I can use it as a table. Being very resourceful there. You can take a table and just have that dedicated as, okay, I do spell work on this table, I do magic on this table. You can also do other stuff on it if you cleanse it off properly. I do all of my artwork on this table as well. It is kind of a overall flow place. It's a space that I can turn into whatever I need. But if you're doing a more spirit-based altar, you would want to have an image of them there. The reason I say have a glass of water, candle, and image is pretty specific. The glass of water is a medium for spirits to manifest and to touch down into the world. It is also an offering to them. It also gives them coolness and refreshes them so that they're ready to do the work. I honestly recommend having a glass of water and candle out for every spell. Do I do this? No, because I am lazy and I sometimes just will not. But I do generally recommend refreshing the water and candle. Having a white candle in particular is great for any sort of spell work. Just having that set up and ready to go during the work so that all the spirits come in refreshed and ready to go. The candle is a light to guide them in. It is fire to empower them. And while I do recommend white candles generally as like a catch-all, if the color that the spirit has is very specific, you can do that. Like if you're setting up an altar to a planet, use the planetary color. If you're setting up an altar to a spirit who has a well-known color association, just use that color. It's not that deep. And then having the image of the spirit, because it's the spirit, you want to have that image. And when I say image, it can be anything from literally something you drew to a prayer card, to a nice painting, to a full-on statue. It doesn't even have to be any of those. It can be a pot of dirt that you put certain things into and mix it up, and that is now the image of the spirit. That is also a spirit vessel in some cases, so blending the lines a bit there. If you have an iconic image of a spirit, that's also fine. You just might want to dress it up in certain ways. That can be an whole episode too. We'll get into that. Oh, there's so much to talk about. I do love to yap. Once you have had that set up, you can add things like working tools. Anything that is used by the spirits or by you to do magic. Wands are a great example. Athames, your very traditional neo-pagan, eclectic Wiccan altar's gonna have those wand, athame, pentacle, chalice, some candles for the god and goddess or for the god that you're invoking. Probably have some other stuff like little statues and trinkets. If you're doing something that is very specific, you might have strophalos if you're having a more Greek-oriented altar. You might have your ritual robes actually kept on the altar. You might have your black-hilted knife, your hazel wand, all these other things that might be kept on an altar. Even consumable tools you might keep on an altar to have that confluence. I know that I do this for certain practices. I will keep all of my candles that I know I'm going to use for that spirit on the altar because it keeps that energy of the altar with them. Because when you create an altar, when you create a dedicated space, you are creating a place where spirits can aggregate, where spirits can come together to be in a place. And when you are creating that space, it means that they will have a continual flow there. And so whatever you place there will pick up on that flow. It will pick up on the energy of that space. So if you have a necromantic altar, you might not want to put everything on there because that will then pick up on the energy of the dead, on the energy of death overall. That if you move that off and put it somewhere else, like let's say you have a white candle and they're like, oh, actually I want to use this in a spell unrelated to death and would actually have a negative impact from the necromantic influence, well, you can't use that candle now. Or you could have to cleanse it off and do a whole process, but It's just easier not to do that. Think about what you're using from where. What is dedicated to a spirit, what is seen as dedicated, because sometimes you leave something on there and you're like, oh, this is mine now. And then you have a problem when you try to move it off. So just really think about what you are doing. It just comes down to organization at the end of the day. Keep your spirit's tools on them there. Like if you have a deck of cards dedicated to spirits, this is a really good method to do, by the way. I highly recommend if you want to get to know a spirit, give them a deck of cards. Just, go to your gas station, go to the Dollar Tree, get a deck of playing cards, give it to them and say, I use this to talk to me. You can keep that on there for them. It allows it to really go through their influence, really become part of them. Any other tools you might have dedicated to them, just keep with them. We'll get into this more with the statue episode, but if you have a rosary that you keep around your saint or your other spirit, keep that on them. That tool is now becoming an extension of the spirit, and that spirit now has the altar as a home. The altar is the home of the spirit, is an extension of them, and a place where they can interact. So really think about like that. You would have different things in there to feed them, to give them stuff to do, right? But while I'm saying all of this, don't overdo it. Altars are meant to be tailored to your needs and not necessarily what looks good or what feels like you have to have, because all that you really need to have is that glass of water, candle, and image. That's really all that you should have as a basis. You don't even technically need all of it, but that gets into you don't need anything ever, really. Which, is true, but not helpful. So you can start building it up over time, Get nicer statues, get nicer candles, get an altar cloth. I don't always recommend getting an altar cloth immediately, personally. That's just me, because I kind of don't use them a ton. Days get messy, so I usually don't use altar cloths a ton, but they are good things to have. They are nice. You can fumigate them, draw stuff onto them, mix them up with herbs, and wash them in certain ways. That gives it a certain potency. It gives it a certain ability. They're nice to have. You can keep your magical books on them, especially anything that's dedicated to those spirits. Like if you set up an altar to Hecate, keep all of your books about Hecate on the altar. Keep all of your divination tools for her on the altar, stuff like that. And over time, it will just grow. Altars are not made to be one stagnant thing. It's a home. It is going to grow. It's going to change. You're going to add stuff, take stuff away. And it will just become a lot more flowy if you let it flow. And that flow is important to develop, because when you add too much to an altar all at once, you start to clutter it up with all these different energies. It might not necessarily need to have that much at first. You'll get inclinations of like, oh, I should add this. Oh, I should dress it up for this season. I should add such and such. Oh, wait, I don't need this on here actually. Oh, this is good for a while, but let's take it off for now. Or this is good for the next month, but once the new moon hits, we're gonna take it off and add this thing instead. It's going to change and grow and flow, and it should be a representation of you and your spirit's relationship rather than a aesthetic thing that you feel the need to keep up with. Now, having aesthetic is fine. Make your shit look pretty. I think making stuff look pretty is great. And pretty doesn't necessarily have to mean like it's covered in flowers and bows and other stuff that's conventionally pretty. I mean, to me, something that looks gorgeous is like, a dirt covered floor with a bunch of candles in it and like skulls all over the place. Like, I think that shit's hot. But is it what you need all the time? Not necessarily. Some spirits don't want that. And surprisingly, some of mine don't even want that, which is crazy for me. But, go with what is going to look and feel good for both you, the spirit, and the actual needs of the practice. Spirits like pretty things too. So if they want their altar to be very like shiny and pretty, then make it very shiny and pretty. Now, if they want to be very dirty and grimy and evil, make it dirty, grimy, and evil. But with that said, let's talk about starting or restarting an altar and just some good general practices. Let's start at the very beginning before we just go into, okay, but what do we add? What do we give to it? Let's start with how to actually get it going. And this is good also if you have an altar that's felt stale and you just need a good refresh, which I do recommend doing every so often, whether that's quarterly, every 6 months, once a year, once every few years. A good thing to do is wash the entire table or whatever down with Florida water, holy water, whatever sort of fluid you feel is necessary to kind of clean everything out. I recommend Florida water in general because it is a good all-around cleanser. The way that I've been taught to use it is pretty much only a cleanser unless you fix it in certain ways. And I do like to add things like rue and rosemary to mine to give a further boost to cleansing because those are herbs that I work very closely with. But you just sprinkle it all over, wipe it all down, let it dry. Holy water is good too, whether that is Christian holy water or lustral water, Carnips, or some other blessed water from your tradition. You can use that. If you have something else to use, use that. And some spirits want other things. Some spirits don't want the holy water. Some spirits don't want the Florida water. Some spirits don't care. They just want to clean everything down. It's like a hard cleanse and reset. It's not a nice wipe down. It's like okay, we're starting over. We're getting the energy neutral and flat so we can start to add stuff on top. And in that additive process, you can make herbal washes. A good herbal wash to invite stuff in would probably be mint, a little bit of rosemary and lavender, and then adding in a couple other herbs more tailored to that spirit. Like you might steep some bay leaf and add a little bit of cinnamon in if it's for an Ironic Greek deity like Apollo, Aphrodite, Hecate. Maybe if you're trying to draw in a more chthonic spirit, you would use, I don't know why mallow's coming to mind because I'm trying to say mullein. Maybe that's helpful for someone out there if mallow is an herb important to you. But mullein, a little bit of rose, a little bit of myrrh. That's good to add in. Just stuff that corresponds and welcomes them in and makes them feel like, oh, I can come on in now. Just slightly wipe the table down with that. Also clean up your statues, your tools. And I mean that both spiritually, like, give them a nice wash, give them a nice cleanse, wash them down, make them good and spiritually clean, but also physically clean them. You don't want to have dirty things, and over time, they might accumulate certain dirt, literal dirt, but also like, if you're burning incense smoke, the residue might stick a little bit, and it's good to just wash them down, give them a nice bath, clean them, and make them pretty again. I also like to do as like a sort of final bath, a rue and rosemary bath. Again, I love these herbs, but just like a nice final bath. Be like, okay, we're cleansed and we're prepared and ready to go. All the other gunk is off. Make sure that your spirits, if you got ensouled statues, make sure that like the spirits are still residing in there properly, but that you're cleaning them and it's like, oh, okay, our bodies are nice and fresh and ready to go back on. You can also fumigate this space with some welcoming incense. Again, just like the bath that you're doing is just to welcome them in, be like, okay, we're back, we're here, it's going to be good, we're ready to start working again. Honestly, frankincense, bay leaf, and lemongrass is great. I use that as a welcoming incense all the time. Rosemary plus one herb that corresponds to any of your spirits is a good replacement for bay leaf and lemongrass. You just kind of put in the things that your guys like. If your spirits really enjoy rose, fumigate primarily with rose and add a little bit of frankincense, add a little bit of rosemary, just to get them going and elevated as well. Just fumigate it with stuff that is nice and that makes them feel welcomed and ready to work. Set everything back up and give them a nice food offering, both a food offering to your spirits and a food offering to yourself. You put in work too. You are doing work actively. It is important to feed your body as you are feeding the spirits. I personally recommend in general doing more lighter foods. Do fruits, do some bread, stuff like that. I generally recommend for this type of thing because you're not trying to do any sort of like working necessarily. You're not trying to overfeed them. You're just trying to be like, hey, we're back. Let's enjoy some time together. Make yourself a nice little meal too and eat it with them, talk to them. Very important stuff. And speaking of that, segues very nicely into how do we actually maintain the altar, right? How do we keep up with it now that we've built it, now that we've set it up, now it's ready to go? How do we actually make sure that it's being maintained and properly used to its fullest capacity? I kind of broke this down into different tiers. So the first is on the daily level. Check up on any plants, any water, any food, or other perishable or consumable items that are on the altar. If the plants are looking a little withered, make sure they aren't taking a hit from you. Check for all the omens first, but check if the plants are withered, give them a little water, talk to them, talk to your spirits, especially if you have a spirit in that plant or who's over that plant, or that plant is an extension of that spirit. Talk to them there, engage with them, check on their waters or any bugs in there. You want to clean that out, you want to refresh it. You don't necessarily have to refresh water every single day, but you might want to do it if it's looking a little bit murky, if it's looking a little bit gross. You might want to refresh it a bit. If you have food offerings, I generally don't leave them on super long personally. If they're not rotting, it's fine, but check in on them, please. Look for any omens in the altar. A very drastic omen, is did your statue move? I've had that happen. It does happen, but other times it's oh, there's nothing. There is no omen. That's cool. It's better when there's no omens. Oh, my plant's a little bit more wilty than usual. Oh, I know some bugs in the water. This food rotted really fast. It normally shouldn't rot like that. Okay, let's do some divination. No omen is a good omen. That's what I always say. Do your daily prayers, spend some time, light candles. Think about what your actual capacity is every day. Do you have the capacity to do full rituals and operations every day? Do you have the capacity to do full offerings every day? If not, then don't do them every day, because your spirits will expect it, and then you'll also expect it of yourself. And then when you can't do that, if you're sick, think about the bad days. Think about days that are going to be bad. It's easy to just kind of sit, light a candle, say, hey gang, I'm here, and look at your plants. It's a very, very minimal capacity thing. I also don't recommend setting a time for everything unless you have a very specific relationship. And certain spirits do require a specific time, I should say that. Some spirits are exclusively nocturnal and you have to do their devotions at night, so you would do it then. But other spirits are diurnal and all this other stuff. But if you have the opportunity and the option, I recommend just going to the altar when you can. Don't beat yourself up if it's 4 p.m. and you want to do it at 8 a.m. It happens. Just make sure that you're just hey, I'm sorry I wanted to do this earlier, but I'm doing it now. And just spend time at the altar as much as you can, whether that's 5 minutes or an hour. And it's good to also remember your spirits exist off of the altar. The altar is just a house, but you should leave your house. If you don't leave your house, it's a problem. But you should leave your house. Your spirits also leave the house. They are everywhere. A lot of them are everywhere, at the very least. Hecate doesn't only exist on the altar on in your statue at your house. She doesn't only exist at the crossroads. She exists everywhere, Every spirit exists everywhere. Your ancestors aren't confined to their altar. Your ancestors walk with you every single place you go. Every time your bones are moving, your ancestors are moving with you. The gods are always present. They aren't away at some temple or shrine. So it's good to remind yourself of that, and that you can, in fact, just if you realize, oh, I want to be at the altar and say some prayers, oh, I can't do that right now. Well, I can sit and at least say some prayers hey, I'm sorry, Zeus, I wasn't at your altar to say this, but thank you for your blessings and abundance. I am very happy that you're part of my life. Whatever it is that you say. And I always recommend, speak from the heart. It's good to have a set of prayers, a good opening, a good closing, a solid petitioning prayer. Those are a good set of 3 standardized prayers you can have. If you're in a specific tradition, obviously you'll have prayers for specific things. If you come from a Kardecian perspective, you'll probably have the selected collection of prayers. You can say the everyday prayer, evocation to good spirits. If you're more Solomonic, you have the Heptameron prayers of the day. You have all this stuff that you can just pray, but pray from the heart along with it. Make it come from the heart, even if it's not your words. Moving up from the daily, we've got the weekly. I think that weekly is kind of a do it or don't type of thing. Weekly's a bit of a weird spot. Some people have the capacity for weekly, some people don't. I have a fluctuating capacity for weekly, so I do weekly stuff when I can, which is a good thing. You know, you should communicate that to your spirits. It's like, okay, I can't do everything perfectly, but I can do this most of the time. And it's a good thing when I can. So let's advocate for making this more possible. You know, if there's like stuff in your way, say, well, you like when I do this thing weekly, make it easier without causing more struggles in my life for me to do this. And for weekly stuff, I generally recommend refreshing things like water, flowers, giving some larger offerings for accomplishments this week, you know, like maybe bake a specific meal just for your spirits, you know. On the daily level, real quick, I do recommend eating a little bit with your spirits, you know, like if you make your own meal, cut a small portion of it and give it to your primary spirit or to your ancestors. But for weekly, you know, if you have the ability to give a larger portion of your meal, or cook a meal and sit down with your spirits and have them have a whole portion. Again, this is only if you are able to do this, one, financially, and two, feels like something that is actually doable for you. But you can also just do a just slightly larger portion of something, you know, like if you normally give like a piece of your breakfast, give them a pancake. You know, also start to wipe down stuff that's been getting dusty and dirty. It helps with maintaining it so you don't have to do it all when you do a big clean. But generally, I recommend like weekends or the start of the week for this. So, you know, it's like it's the end of the week. We've done our work. Thank you for everything you've done this week. Thank you for all this stuff. It's been really awesome. Or hey, this didn't work out super well. I want to rework it this way. Let's do a spell for the coming week. And the start of the week is good too for things like, here's what I'm trying to get accomplished this week. Let's do some divination for the week. Oh, here's some problems for XYZ day. I never like have time for this anymore, but I used to like do a weekly divination where I would see 7 cards for each day of the week. And I could ask further questions from there. It's a really good thing if you have the time, or pulling like a geomantic chart for the week and taking a look at all the things that are going on. Morning pulls are also good back on the daily side of things. It just isn't stuff that I do anymore because I don't really have the time or capacity anymore, but it's a good thing to do. Some more larger scale devotions are also good to do weekly. For example, if you have like a planetary practice, you might do a Friday devotional offering and prayer cycle for Aphrodite, while you might attend to her altar every day. On Fridays, you might do like a bigger thing. I have particular stuff that I do on the planetary days, specific corresponding stuff in the week and all this other stuff. I have specific prayers that I say. I do specific devotions that are outside the norm of the daily cycles, but they aren't super big. It's like if daily you're sitting and saying an Our Father, you might say a full rosary on a Friday. But if you have any other holy days during the week, you know, that's a good time to just focus on a larger devotion, you know, a longer invocation. Like maybe you say a short prayer to Aphrodite every day, and you might just do the Orphic hymn with some rose incense on a Friday, dressed up nice, giving her new flowers, stuff like that. Moving on to monthly, this is a good time to do a smaller refresh and like cleaning of the altar. I like to roughly or every few months take down the altar and then clean it. Give everyone a nice clean slate. Not like an intense cleaning, but more just like, let's wash all the statues, let's wipe the table down, let's make it look nice. Again, some more incense. It's also a good time to do more specific and major devotions and dedications and any larger workings that relate to long-term goals. So you might do a road opener on the new moons. That's something that I do. I have a very specific practice with that. And on the full moons, it's sort of a refresh of any road opener stuff I've done on the new moon, like stuff that isn't working. I'm like, okay, let's see how we can make this work better. Yeah, this was working good for a minute, but it's kind of slowed down. Let's re-empower it for the latter half of the cycle. I like moon points for that, you know, your full moon, your new moon, your half moons, gibbuses if you're into that. I also like the start and end of the month, like the first day and the last day are always good days for anything. You know, your first day devotions, you're probably going to do stuff like, oh, bring me prosperity for this month, bring me whatever is the theme of this month. I like to do various zodiacal stuff. I like various pentacles, combining different planetary and zodiacal stuff together, and making the most of these transition times. The zodiac changes usually, like the sun sign usually changes around the 20th to 23rd of a month. Kind of depends. That's a good time to do some more specific zodiacal workings. If you have any gods who are tied into the zodiac, work with that. Any spirits that are tied to a zodiac, it's a good time to work with that, or even just like making a zodiac practice. If you're a Taurus and you want to develop a relationship with Taurus, look when the moon's in Taurus, look when Taurus is on the ascendant, just engage with it that way. This is not an astrology podcast. I'm not going to get into that here. It's also just a good idea to have a special night where you will meet up with all of your spirits, get your whole court together, and just have a meal with them, talk with them about stuff, see if they have anything they want to tell you, allow them to speak, just like give them a time where they're able to just kind of settle in, and it's like, hey, let's look at how things are going. Let's reassess, let's refresh. Again, start of the month, end of the month is good for this. Midpoint, full moon's usually a good time. Full moon's usually the midpoint of the month. It's a good time to do that. You can do it with the changing of the zodiac. That might be interesting. There's just different stuff you can do. Monthly's harder because that's like a larger scale thing, but it's just a good time to check in and to do any bigger working that feels necessary. Again, road open on a new moon is just a great go-to. Solid cleansing on the full moon. Now the big one is yearly. This is when you get fully reset on everything. It's like, I'm gonna redo everything, or redecorate, or like prepare for a season and all this other stuff. It's big stuff, right? New Year's is a great time for any yearly devotion. Some specific traditions I have very intense like yearly devotions with lots of fasting, and like it's a big preparation process around certain days. So I'm always like keeping those in mind. There's big dates every year, like your saint's feast day. That's going to be a yearly event that you want to prepare for, and you want to give them a nice meal. Like, really go all out. I've seen some phenomenal like altars for saints just like go huge for the feast day, and then go back to very simple and normal for the rest of the year. But they're beautiful. Like if you have a big yearly devotion around like the spring equinox, like the rebirth of the year, or any other sort of Sabbats, like I celebrate the Sabbats. I think they're cute and I love them. Yule's my favorite. I do big stuff for Yule. Yule's a very important time for me. Beltane's big too. I love Beltane and Walpurgisnacht. Walpurgisnacht holds a lot of significance for me. Like I do these big things for them for these times. I incorporate that into my altars. Like I will refresh the shrines and apply certain herbs and flowers and decoration for the time. I celebrate various more specific holidays tied around certain spirits, so I will celebrate them. Like for Our Lady Guadalupe, I will always do a big thing for her. I have a lot that I do for her on her day. It is a very important thing to think about, also like the larger scale beyond just yourself. What is behind these devotions that you're doing? Like, why is it good to do these devotions? But what matters most of all is that you're engaging with the altar. It is a part of your life. Make the magic part of your life. It's not just a separate designated space where the magic only exists there, where your spirits only exist at the altar. The altar is supposed to be engaged with in every aspect of your life. Like a good thing to do is have like a little kitchen altar, so that every time you're cooking, you light a candle, you call upon whatever ancestor or household god or whatever else, and you're just like, hey, let's cook a meal, let's make something nice. I feel like shit today. Let's make some soup. Or, God, my morning coffee. I don't drink, but I need my morning coffee. Let's drink that. Or, I have this like sinus issue. Let's drink some tea together. Make it part of your life. It doesn't have to be grand, but make sure that you're engaging with these altars, with these spirits. Whenever I pass by my altars, I'll just do like a little hi, hello. Sorry, I'm not with you right now. I'm doing all this other bullshit. I go around my altars and say goodnight in the various languages of my spirits. I'm also saying goodnight to my cat, to my house, to everyone. Just make it part of your life. Wake up in the morning. If you have an altar in your bedroom, which is controversial, we won't get into that right now. Greet your altar in your morning. If you have a patron spirit, especially a household spirit, when you wake up, force yourself out of bed and go say good morning. Trust me, it's really helpful, honestly, to like actually getting your day started. One of my patron spirits, she asked me to greet her every morning. As soon as I wake up, don't look at my phone, don't talk to anyone, just get up and talk to her. And I was like, okay, I can do that. It's helpful because it forces me out of bed and forces me to not turn off my alarm and sleep longer. It's good to incorporate it all into your life. Just little devotions go a long way. I'm a very devotional person when it comes to magic and to everything. I think that devotion is one of the best things you can do magically. It just builds so much for you that the strongest spell that you pull out of any grimoire would not compare, quite frankly. And with that, it's important to grow naturally with your altar. Your altar should grow with your needs. Do you need a new statue, or does it look nice? Does looking nice constitute a need? If it does, and it does, that's fine. If your reasoning for a statue is it looks nice and I want to get things that look nice for my spirits, then hell yeah, go for it. But if it's like, no, I just feel pressure from the spiritual community to get it because such and such on whatever has this gorgeous statue of San Lazaro. Well, do you need that statue? Has he asked for it? Can you afford it? Or is the prayer card working fine? If the prayer card's working fine, then it's working fine. If it's not, then, see what it is that's actually needed. And if it is a statue, see why you need that statue, or if you can downsize to keep things, within budget. I think about all this as like a budget thing, low-key, because the horrors persist, and I love getting beautiful stuff for my spirits, but also, like, I totally don't have the money all the time. So I'm like, yeah, I don't need a new statue, and no, I don't need to get a statue for the spirit that I just started engaging with. I can work with their sigil, I can work with their image, it's fine. I can work with just a song, with just an invocation. I don't have to have all the accoutrement to make it work. And for some people, you totally can just get like a ton of statues. You want to cleanse them and make them actually purposeful, because just because you have a statue doesn't mean that is the spirit coming forward. You want to make sure that it is. You want to cleanse it out, especially if you buy it at like a secondhand or a spiritual store. If you buy it online, especially, because you don't know where it's been. Cleanse it off. You want to invite the spirit in. We'll talk about that in a little bit, actually, but think about what it is that you want. Whenever you add something to an altar, specifically, like a mainstay item rather than consumables or short-term stuff, think about what that item brings to the literal table, and if it's something you actually need, like buying a new wand. Do you need the wand? And when you do get the wand, is it for a specific spirit? Is it for a specific purpose? Again, like it can literally be like, it looks cute, I like it, I'm gonna use it. But make sure it's something that's being used. I personally don't super love having a ton of clutter, so I want to have stuff that's getting used in particular ways, So just keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. Altar envy is also so real, and do not fall into it. Again, just like focus on your needs first. I have seen such beautiful altars for pretty much all the spirits that I engage with, and I'm like, oh, I want to get all that stuff. And then I talk to them about it, and they're like, but do you need it? Do you even know what half of this is? And I'm like, no, but like it looks so cool. And that's how appropriation happens, is that you see something that looks cool in like a tradition you're not part of, and you're like, oh, I want that thing, and you take it. Full shade. If you want something, really think about why you want it. Is it because it looks super cool, or do you have an actual use for it? And if it is super cool, why is it cool for your practice? It's just the things to think about. But when you actually add something, because I keep talking about why you shouldn't add anything, have nothing on your altar. You should have nothing on your altar. Your altar should be empty. When you do add something, make sure that it's cleansed off and ready to be installed into the altar space. When I say that, it sounds like a fucking HVAC system or something, but make sure that it's up to your standards of your space. Is it cleansed in the same way you cleanse everything else? Is it properly taken care of? Clean? Has it been buried in a graveyard for 19 moon cycles and poured over with chicken blood or some bullshit? Like, it doesn't match what you need, right? And whenever you install something, it can literally be as simple as you wash it, you fumigate it, You put the spirit's oil on it and you set it on the altar and say, "This is for you." It can be more complicated, like you anoint it in a specific pattern and lay it in a bowl of water that's refreshed every single day with herbs and charms and prayers, and poured over into hagstones and uh, brushed down with aspergillum. But it's not necessarily all the time. Sometimes it's just literally, "I got this for you, it's so cute, have this rock." It's not always that deep. Make sure that you're taking time and not just like dropping it on the altar. I do like the adding a little bit of the spirit's oil, which can either be like an oil that you buy or create that has all the spirit's correspondences in it and it's been blessed in certain ways. It could also be an oil lamp that you burn. You just take a little bit of that oil and you dab it on. I like oil lamps a lot. You can pass it through a candle, pass it through the spirit smoke. Just be like, "Oh, this is for you. Accept it, enjoy it, use it as you desire." Or, "Hey, I'm putting this new tool on the altar. I'm going to use it in our workings." And sometimes you will be asked to add something to an altar in dreams or direct contact. I have had plenty of dreams where spirits have told me to get stuff for them. It's always negotiable, never feel like you have to commit to it because the spirit told you. If a spirit asks you to get $1 million skull of a goat that is only found on one mountain in Nepal, that's be fed with herbs from the middle of Indonesia and washed in water from the Indian Ocean, you don't have to do that. You can be like, that sure sounds neat. Have you considered that I don't have the fucking money? Which you can, say very nicely. As someone who has had to purchase some kind of silly stuff before, I always recommend open up with, "Okay, and here's the money spell that gets me that thing. Since you want me to have it so much, here's the money spell for that, and make me have the money for it." Other times it'll be very reasonable stuff like, "I want more flowers. I want a new statue that is not crazy expensive. Can you get me a statue?" I've had dreams showing me exactly where to buy a statue before. And I went into the store like the next day and they had that statue restocked perfectly. And I was like, "Oh, wow, this is for you. Exact color you needed and everything." I get statue dreams a lot. There's like statues. I also like statues just because I'm raised Catholic and we love our statues. We don't always have to get all of these things. And sometimes it's better not to. There is a sense of, yes, you want to give your spirits nice things, but sometimes they ask for things that are not being provided for by them. Like they might want that super expensive thing, but if you are relying on them for money and they are not getting you money, then they don't have to have the super expensive thing. I kind of like to think of it again like a little house. You buy the furniture that you need, you get decorations that look nice, and you buy appliances that are necessary. And you just kind of go from there, You get the furniture, your statues. Statues are kind of the best analogy for furniture. You get decorations, you got your flowers, you got your candles, you got your altar cloth, you got your paintings, you get your appliances, you get, your glasses of water, your jars full of mysterious things that when you shake, they do funny stuff. Your wands, your athames, your strophalos, your charm bags. And you just kind of go from there, you add what you need, you take away what you don't need, you replace appliances and furniture as it needs to. You change the decorations with the seasons or with the vibe. It's a little home. And as it is their home, it is important to respect their home, respect them in their own home, respect them in their own turf. Respect comes in different ways. What I'm about to give is like a sort of extensive list of things that are general good ideas not to do, but not hard-nosed, and also like some of the stuff will be added on to depending on your taboos and traditions. Different practices call for different things and you can't apply everything universally. With that being said, here's a good like general list of best practices, I guess we'll call them. Don't put things on altars that aren't for those spirits. This is specifically, don't set like your fucking Coke can on the altar to Kronos. Don't set down your plate of food. Don't set down stuff that is not for the spirit. One, they might claim it as their own and now you're drinking Kronos' Coke that he didn't even ask for and doesn't even like. Now he's like double pissed off. Two, it's just kind of a show of respect, You're just dropping that in their house. You're You're putting your Coke on someone's bed. You're putting your shoes on the bed. Don't put your fucking shoes on the bed. I say that with love. Just like don't set down stuff that isn't for them, that isn't specifically tied to the altar, and it's also a show of like they actually are there and not just this is the thing that whenever I want it to be magic, it's magic. Speak respectfully of the spirits on the altar and acknowledge that they are there. Again, like, the magic is not turned off as soon as you decide it's turned off. It is turned off when there is nothing there anymore. And even then, it's not really turned off. You want to talk really respectfully of the spirits, especially in front of them. They can hear things, especially if you're in a house and you have an established relationship with the household spirit. Word gets around fast. You want to be respectful of the spirits, especially if there's like an actual spirit vessel there that's been ensouled and enlivened in particular ways. Like that spirit is there. Don't fucking shit talk them. That's how you get. That's how you get God. Be kind and respectful and remember that they are there and present. You wouldn't say stupid shit about Hecate in front of Hecate's altar. You wouldn't say anything rude about Odin in front of Odin's space, right? Similarly, further on that sort of train, avoid sex and sexual acts in front of the altars unless it is very specifically good for you to do that in front of yours. None of my traditions say that you should do that. If it is in your tradition and it is good and your spirits want you to do that for whatever reason, then do that. Generally, though, you want to avoid sex and sexual acts in front of the altars. Your ancestors don't want to see that. Similarly, avoid being drunk, high, more like in excess. I don't smoke or drink. I'm super fucking lame, so I don't really have experience with this, but like if you're gonna be high in your home, maybe don't be like greening out in front of your ancestors. Maybe don't be greening out in front of Saint Christopher. And some spirits, they enjoy like the vices of life. They enjoy a cigarette, they enjoy some nice rum. They enjoy the good shit. It's the excess, and it's the are you doing this in celebration with them, or are you coming home plastered and fucked up and you're just like fucking vomiting in front of Mary? To think about the layers of it, right? Obviously, it's fine to be a little tipsy and be like, I love you guys, I love you, Hecate. Think about what is respectable and presentable. If you realize you're at a certain point, you can go to the altar and be like, hey, I am so sorry I am like this. I'm going to veil you. I'm going to cover you up. That's, yeah, if you're going to be having sex and stuff like that in front of your altars, cover them up. Like if it's in the bedroom and you have no other option, just put like a white cloth over it, or at least over the primary statue where the vessel is. Just be like, hey, I'm so sorry that I'm like this. I'm so sorry that I'm like plastered in front of you, but I'm just gonna cover it up and we'll deal with it later. Or hey, this is my life. I don't judge you in your myths. You don't judge me in my life. Negotiate that how you need to negotiate it. But very importantly, be respectful of yourself in front of your spirits. Do not talk openly about any sort of self-hate you have. Not in the sense of like bottle it up. Talk to your spirits about it, but don't offhandedly say it, if that makes sense. Don't be like, God, I fucking hate myself. God, my life sucks so much. God, I wish it was all over right now. Like really think about that, and in general, don't say that about yourself. I'm a big advocate of self-love. As someone who has said those things before, I am a very big advocate of stop yourself and reframe that. And if you are saying that from the altars, bring that to your spirits. Bring that to them. Say, hey, I'm fucking going through it. I feel like garbage right now. I really don't know what to do. I'm at my limits. How can I go forward? Let's talk. Let me just be in your presence. Let me just feel and experience you right now. It's important to respect yourself, to build yourself up, both spiritually. It's important because you can't command a demon if you can't command yourself to do dishes. But it's also important in general, just like for your health. Your spirits want you to be healthy. Your spirits want you to have a good life. You deserve a good life. You deserve to feel good about yourself. You deserve to feel bad and understand that, like, this is a normal feeling, you know, especially if you have like chronic depression, if you have other disabilities that just make it impossible to always be 100% like, yes, I love myself all the time. It's a very hard uphill battle, but you know, your spirits want the best for you. Don't neglect them. Don't neglect their counsel when you are like that. And if you just want to like sit and feel like shit, you're totally allowed to. I recommend again with the veiling of like, hey, I know that you're here, but I can't right now. I don't want to have you hear the things I have to say about myself right now. So I'm asking that you silently look away, that I cover you, and we'll talk about this when I'm in a better headspace once I've gotten it all out. That is an option that you can go with. You know, it's rough. It's rough city. I do recommend the option of just bringing it to them, but if it is too much, just, you know, take time away from the altars and take time for yourself. On the opposite end, you know, you should be respectful of others, with the caveat of if you don't fucking like someone and want your spirits to do something about it, shit talk them. It works, you know? There are people that I have absolutely not liked who have absolutely fucking wronged me, who I will just go straight up to my altars and be like, I do not like this bitch. I fucking cannot stand them. They treat me like shit at my work, in class, what fucking ever. And mysteriously things go my way. You're supposed to listen to that. So the caution is, you know, say that for like people who are actual assholes in your life and who you would do working on anyway. But for the people, like, if you have an argument with a partner who is good, like someone who like you actually want to be with and who your spirits are vouching for you to be with, do not go to the altars and start saying, oh, they're whatever, because you're mad. You know, cool yourself off, wash your hands, drink some water, give some water to your spirits and be like, hey, I'm kind of going through whatever right now with this person. Can we talk about it? Can we sort of process our emotions here? Same with friends. You know, I have this problem of like getting stressed out with friendships sometimes. It is one of the issues of having certain disabilities is that I can't process information properly. You know, I get rejection sensitive dysphoria really bad. So I tend to stress out a lot. And honestly, talking to my spirits and being like, hey, I know I'm not actually mad at this person. This person didn't actually do anything wrong, but it is causing me to feel like this. Can we talk about it? And it works. Some of the best advice I've gotten is from spirits. So, you know. On the other side, if you don't want someone to be around, tell your spirits, like, God, I cannot fucking stand this person. Oh my God. Crazy. And suddenly the confrontation happens and they are fully in the wrong and they're blocked on everything. Crazy how that works. But respect for the altars also goes beyond just what you're doing in your own home and your own private time. It also involves the people who you have over and who live with you. So we're kind of going to go through another list of things that generally apply. Here's some other stuff that might come up. So the first big one is some spirits do not like to be seen by others, or they have statues that do not want to be seen by other people. So you have to cover that up or kind of move the altars. This is really important to negotiate with your spirits. You know, like some spirits are like, yeah, they can see my altars, or I even want them to interact with my altars. Others are like, don't let anyone see this statue. This statue cannot be seen by other people. It can only be seen by you. This shrine can only be seen by you. It can only be tended by you. People can't even know that it exists. You know, like stuff like that. If you have guests over who don't respect your practice especially, or who don't respect particular spirits, or people who live with you, you should just put those altars away. Keep them hidden, keep them out of sight. If you know there are people who will shit talk the altars, who will mock them, who will you know, physically harm the altars in any way, don't have them up. That's just not good practice. It's not good for you. It's not good for the spirits. It's also not good for the person. You know, even if you don't like the person, it is not good for them because it will cause you more problems in the long run anyways. It's just best practice too. If you have to have someone over who won't respect your altars, just avoid the hassle. It is stressful, it is frustrating. Trust me, I get it. But it is easier than trying to deal with people who are going to cause more problems or even destroy them. Ensure that everyone who is engaging with them follows the previously stated taboos and any others for your altars that are just out in the open. You know, like, again, if you're gonna have people over for a party, you know people are gonna get shit faced. Maybe cover up the altars. Maybe say, hey, here's the vibe for tonight. You know, if y'all want to kind of hang out when things are okay, then that's chill. But we might want to cover you guys up, and you know, unless someone does something insulting in front of you, or God forbid, you know, gets super drunk and forgets all of these rules for your altars. And you know, the other stuff, like, you know, don't don't let people put their phones on your altar. Oh my god. People will try to put their phones on my altars all the time. Or like other shit, like their keys, and I'm like, no. Oh my god, no. It's like so obviously an altar. And like, I don't care if you don't fucking believe in them or not. They don't believe in you either. Doesn't matter if you believe in them or not, because they will still fucking get your ass. And again, if you bring others to engage with the altar, ensure they have the proper purity standards, even if it's just like, you know, washing their hands. It's generally the highest purity standard for a lot of the stuff I do. Check with your spirits first if they're comfortable with them even being there. You know, it is their house, it is their space. If your spirits aren't comfortable with a person, don't assume that they will want everyone over. You know, you might bring a friend over who you think is great, but your spirits are like, that's great that you're friends with them. I don't necessarily want them around me. Or I see something going on and I don't fucking want that fucker in your house. Many such cases. Beware the omens. Beware the omens. But yeah, no, make sure that they're following all the protocols that you would follow. Sometimes it's honestly just best practice to say, hey, yeah, you can stand by, but stay silent. Or speak this words along with me. Say these things alongside me. Light this candle, bring this offering. Which, speaking of, if people want to, encourage them to bring offerings. Ask your spirits what offerings they want from other people. Some spirits of mine are like, yeah, just give me whatever. Some spirits are like, you can give me this, this, and this. You cannot give me this. If you give me this, I will force you to initiate. One thing I heard specifically one time from one spirit of mine, she was like, yeah, I want these offerings. If they give me this offering that's pretty normal for me, I will make them initiate. And I'm like, oh, heard, serve. We are not doing that. We will make sure that they know not to do that then. So yeah, it's a very important thing to communicate and to make sure that you're, you know, communicating both on your end as well as their end. Like, okay, do you want these offerings, and do you even want offerings from people? Because sometimes they don't want offerings from people. Some spirits are like, yeah, I really only want offerings from you, or I don't know, like, I don't really want to have all these offerings coming in right now, which is fine. And again, these are general guidelines. They will grow and they will change as necessity dictates. To kind of round out this episode, I'm going to talk about taking down an altar. There's a very short and simple way to do this. Cleanse, say thank you, and take it down. Just say, hey, we're done. Thank you all for everything. We're changing the altar up now. I'll talk to you all later. Or you guys will stay here, you guys are leaving and going to a different place, or we're just cutting off the relationship and starting over. You can give items away if you need to, you can bury them in certain places, or you can keep them for other purposes. It's a good idea to cleanse down after you take an altar down to move specifically. Whenever you're moving, it's good to just like really deep clean spiritually stuff, because you have a lot more stuck in than you think, you know. Last time I moved, as I was moving, I was making all these changes. I was like, okay, I'm going to wash this stuff down. I'm going to sing these songs. I'm going to do these prayers. I'm going to play this music. Because I know I've done some fuck shit in here, and I really don't want the next person to have to deal with the insanity of the things I get up to. Because, Lord, that was a crazy time. The amount of spirits that touched down in that apartment is crazy. But you want to cleanse everything down. You want to make it nice and ready for people to come in and be like, oh, okay, things are good. We can set up our own stuff here, because you never know who's going to come in. You might have someone come in who has their own practice and is very sensitive to spirits, and they're like, oh, I have to clean up all this other stuff from the other person. Great. It's respectful. It's nice to respect people and to respect the spirits too. Like, you're uprooting them. You want to make sure that they have an easier time. And sometimes it will be a bit more intensive. It will require, like a lot more offerings and being like, I'm so sorry, but we gotta get out of here, cleanse this all down. I gotta make all these washes, all this other stuff. Sometimes that is necessary. It's a really good idea to just talk with them about it and be like, okay, what do we actually need here, and what's got to be done to make sure that we achieve all this, right? And in general, just give good offerings and thanks for all the work that's been done, for all the spirits who were ever sat upon the altar. Make sure that they are honored, they are properly perpetuated, and that they are ready to go. If they aren't ready to go, and it is they're attached here, they refuse to leave, they're interrupting your agency, there are harder and stronger workings to do in that case. That's kind of beyond the scope of this episode. But I do hope that all this was helpful to you all. I hope that you got at least some ideas of what to do, how to further elaborate on an altar, how to really reset, how to kind of focus back in and be ready to accommodate new stuff or remove old stuff, or just be like, I really need to clean up more. I really need to do more of these smaller devotions. Whatever it may be, this is a very general episode. Try to give some good examples, but if you have any specific questions about any altar configurations, any sort of way of working it, you need help with a daily routine, feel free to reach out to me. I love altars. They are a core foundation of my practice. I'm super happy to help you out. I'm super happy to give you any advice. Reach out to me over at Instagram. Again, that is at Aiden the Witch. That is AIDENTHEVVITCH, as well as through my website, aidenthewitch.com, aidenthevitch.com. Feel free to reach out to me there. Again, I also offer spell work, divination services. I have various blog posts to read through, all kinds of stuff on that website. And now for our final portion, our altar offering hymnals. That's right, it's the music section of our episode. We have Upon the Altar by Greenlung, because of course, Upon the Altar is one of my, if not my absolute favorite Greenlung song. It's super good. I have to say it because it's, Upon the Altar. And then we have I'd Like to Walk Around in Your Mind by Vashti Bunyan. This one's a bit more obscure. This is just kind of the vibe that I have whenever just cleaning the altars and cleansing them, tending to them. It is my comfy, cozy song. It's very much the vibe I get when I think about myself cleaning altars, when I think about myself tending to them and taking care of them. I have a lot more specific music for my altars. I do play a lot of music at them, but that would be way too specific for this video. Sorry for this podcast. But thank you all for listening in. I hope to see you all in the next one very soon. So let it be.